I made a survey and asked LostArk players questions about their classes, and today we're gonna look at the answers. Hey, what's up guys, my name is Fox and welcome to another video. Today's video we're gonna go over a survey that I posted all over social media. I posted on Twitter, on Reddit, on the forums, and of course here on my YouTube, and we got over 2,500 answers, which is insane if you think about it. So thank you all so much for actually voting and helping me out to make this video. Now, what exactly are those questions is what we're gonna have a look at right now. So let's start. Of course, it started off with a basic simple question about the main class. Which class do you main? Then I asked, which DPS class do you prefer having the most in your party? It was important to make sure this is only about the DPS classes and not about the supports, because that was the next question already. Which support do you prefer playing with? And after that, I decided to ask a few fun questions that are though quite interesting. For example, which class do you believe dies the most in the raids? This was followed by which class do you perceive to be having the most toxic players, and also of course the kindest players. And lastly, the best party composition in your opinion. These answers of course are to be taken with a grain of salt. Remember that this is the community perception of certain classes, and this was also for fun, so please don't take it too serious. But enough talk, now let's have a look at the answers. I'm well aware that many videos already go over class popularity, but it was important to have this question asked due to later questions so that we know what is the most popular class and what is the least popular class. As expected, the highest chosen answer here was the Sorceress, followed by the Bard and the Deathblade. I do believe this is simply due to the Western community enjoying Sorceress or Mage style classes, and shows us that replacing the Summoner with the Sorceress for release was the right move. Bard being so popular is of course also no surprise, as it is only one of the two available supports. Deathblade being the third popular also comes in as no surprise to me, due to it being the only assassin vibe class available at launch. Shadowhunter does not give me those vibes, to be honest, so like I said, no surprise for the Deathblade. Close-up runners to the top 3 were the Gunslinger, the Paladin and the Gunlancer. The least main class currently is the Destroyer, followed by the Sharpshooter, Deadeye, Striker and Artillerist. Surprisingly, even though the Arcanist has been released later than many of these classes, it seems to be a more popular choice. A small side note is that this survey was held pre-Machinist release. So now that we know what the most popular classes are from the people that took this survey, this will help us to decipher some answers better later on down the road. Next up, I asked people which DPS class do you prefer having the most in your party. The answers here were not very surprising in my opinion. Leading by a large margin is the Gunlancer as a preferred teammate. No surprise due to the utility it brings with its shield and debuffing. Very strong in nearly every team comp and fight. Next up was the War Dancer, probably again very much preferred due to the massive synergy it brings to the table. Place number 3 goes to the Deathblade, again probably tied due to the synergy it has, making your class just feel a little better. I was surprised to see Sorceress as the next choice, as I personally cannot understand why I would like a Sorceress in my party, as it barely offers anything to me from a synergy POV. The least preferred class here were the Arcanist with only 5 out of the 2,600 votes and the Sharpshooter with barely 19 votes. It seems that mostly the other classes are all on a similar level of preference. Now that we know what DPS class people prefer, I asked them of course also what support class they want to have in their party. And to no surprise, the answers were pretty close. Only 150 people more voted for Paladin over Bard. Basically 51.5% of the answers chose Paladin, while 48.5% chose the Bard. Personally, this is understandable and no surprise. If I play with my own teammates, I prefer to have a Bard because they can play properly and can make use of their kit and can speed up the raid. This of course comes at the cost of less healing. If I am pugging, yes, I prefer a Paladin, as I believe the skill ceiling to be much lower, and considering that it will always heal me no matter what. I personally don't care and I'm never gonna be picky, But this was still an interesting question because it shows us that supports are pretty much equally liked and also equally balanced, because otherwise this result would have been vastly different. Now on to a very interesting question that I really wanted to ask the people, but keep in mind this is the perception of the community and does not necessarily mean this is true, because there are no official numbers. But here it is. Which class do you believe dies the most in raids? It was really funny looking at the answers here because the race for the top 3 was not even close. The Berserker has a massive lead with over 1,100 votes here, making up nearly half of the whole votes in general. On place 2 we have the Gunslinger, and rank 3 goes to the Sorceress. But wait. Of course you cannot just consume these numbers and take them like that, because class popularity will always be an important factor. The more popular a class is, the more people you will encounter that fit a certain factor. So what I did is that I divided the amount of answers by the amount of mains these classes have. This way we can see a slightly more accurate picture of these answers because we take popularity into account. Of course this does not take into account what classes people have on their elves or anything like that, but it will still help us with the results a little bit. We can clearly see how the bars have changed in this picture. Yes, the Berserker is still leading, but now by even more. So while Berserker is a popular class, it is still by far the most likely class to die in a raid, according to the community that is. What's notable to mention here is that the Arcanist now stands out a bit, and the Deadeye, one of the least popular classes, suddenly is part of the most likely to die. Gunslingers are of course also still on the board. Surprisingly, the Sorceress seems to be still above average, but now, considering the popularity of the class, does not stand out as much anymore. So let's move on to the next question. Again, just a reminder, take this all with a grain of salt. This is for fun, because the next question could be a little bit offensive to someone, depending on what class you play. But I asked people, which class has the most toxic player base? Of course, again, this is perceived by the community. And first we're going to have a look at the raw answers, and then again I'm going to divide it by the amount of mains that ticked a class as their main on this survey. So first we see how the Berserker again stands out by quite a lot, followed this time by the Deathblade and the Sorceress. Notable mentions here are that the two supports, Paladin and Bard, seem to also make an appearance and are perceived to be toxic, a little bit at least. Now again, let's divide this by popularity, as that is quite important, which we've seen earlier to get more accurate results. Here again, the Berserker is leading by a massive amount. I don't know what's up with Berserkers or their player base, but they are clearly not having a great reputation by being the most likely to die and also apparently the most toxic on average. Notable mentions here are the Deathblade, which doesn't really surprise me that much. I personally believe that Deathblade players are the Yasuo and Yone mains from League of Legends. If you haven't played that game, you know exactly what I mean. Funny enough, the Sorceress still is on place 3, but now comes the actual surprise to me. On place 4, very close to the Sorceress, is the Paladin. And honestly, I kinda agree with that. Paladins can sometimes be more toxic than the average person. So I think again, these results are actually kinda accurate from what also I believe. But again, this is only the perception of the community and of course also my own. Now we move from the most toxic to the kindest players, and let me tell you, there were some surprises in this because I didn't see it coming. Now let's start and have a look at the first one, which is the Bard. It's leading by a big amount, yet the surprise here is that in the most toxic question, it was still also leading or in the top 5 there. So that's just interesting to me. Gunlancer players also seem to be very good to have around. Is this truly because they're nice or because we give out synergy is the question. Notable here also again the Paladin, which we again just figured out has more of a toxic player base, but now it also makes an appearance on the rank 3 of the kindest players, so very confusing to me personally. Maybe they're either super nice or super toxic, who knows. And lastly, the Destroyer on place 4, very low popular class, the least popular class from this survey to be exactly, yet making a big appearance in the top 4 kindest player base. I guess this is what comes when you bonk a lot, it's just fun. Now the real question is, considering that I play Gunlance and Destroyer, am I really the kindest player? No. Now, all these questions were funny and are not to be taken serious, so I also wanted to have at least one interesting and serious question. So I asked people, what is in your opinion the best 4-player comp? Because obviously it's interesting to see what the Western player base perceives as the best composition. And the answers were, well, let's say quite one-sided. Let's have a look at the top 4 comps because it just makes sense to go through the top 4, trust me. On rank 1, we have the Bard with Gunlancer, Deathblade and Striker. On rank 2, we just replace the Striker with a War Dancer and we have our second best comp according to the people that voted. On rank 3, we have the Paladin instead of the Bard with the Gunlancer, Deathblade and the War Dancer. And yes, you guessed it, if we take the number 1 comp, but we replace the Bard with the Paladin, so Paladin, Gunlancer, Deathblade and Striker, we have the rank 4. Now, please keep in mind, this does not mean that this is actually true, that those are the best composition, but this is what is perceived as the best composition by the community, I would say. I'm not very surprised to see the Gunlancer in every one of them, to see the, Deathblade in there. I'm not surprised at all because those two classes give really good synergy to a back attacker. I personally would have also put maybe the Scrapper in instead of War Dancer or Striker because it also profits a lot from the double synergy provided by the Gunlance and the Deathblade. And you guessed it, with that we're at the end of this video. I hope you guys liked it, I hope you guys thought this was funny and interesting. I definitely thought so. I thought some of these answers were cool and very interesting to just know that. Poor Zerker players, if you're a Zerker player, I'm sorry for you that you're being perceived as the most likely to die and most toxic player in the game. But of course, you are not toxic at all since you watched this video. Now, what can I say? What do you guys think about these results? Do you agree with any of this? Do you think this is wrong? Do you think this is actually kind of true? Like, I would like to know your opinion because you guys kind of made this, but now maybe there's some of you that disagree completely with what was said in this video. Now, if you like this video, make sure to leave a like and hit the subscribe button. I put a lot of effort into collecting these things and I would really appreciate that, of course. If you guys have ideas for the next video, the next survey, please also put them in the comments below. That would be amazing. You can also, of course, follow me on Twitter and also on Twitch because I will post when there's going to be another survey on my Twitter, and I also stream a lot on Twitch. You can find me there nearly every week a few times where I do my dailies on LostArk, and of course if there is a new survey I will let you guys know on Twitch too. So make sure to go hit the follow button on that social media. After all of that, thank you so much for watching it all. I really appreciate you guys, and as always, wishing you an amazing rest of your day wherever you live.